Okay, I want to talk about loading and unloading filament. Okay, so we've got filament loaded right now. If you don't have any filament loaded, obviously you can skip the first half of this video because you won't have anything to unload. But we'll start, basically, we're going to heat up the hot end, and we're going to pull the filament out, and I'll make sure that I don't let the spool unravel at all. I'll show you how to store a spool correctly, and then we'll do the reverse. We'll load it in. So if you're just loading for the first time, feel free to skip ahead. I'll put a timestamp in here and you can skip ahead. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to move this hot end up and over a little bit. I find it a little bit easier to do. So I'll go into my screen here. All right, and I'm going to go into Prepare, Move Axis. And the first one is we want to move the x-axis. We want to move the x-axis over. And I'm going to go to move by 10 millimeter. And we'll go plus, plus. All right, and we're going to go over to about 100, give or take. Let's do 130. So that just brings it over, puts a little bit less tension on this plastic tube. This is called a Bowden tube or a Bowden tube. Okay, so now that the X is where we want it, we're also going to move the Z-axis. We're going to just move the Z-axis up. Again, let's say like to say 100. 100 is about 4 inches, and that axis moves quite a bit slower because it's using the spindle rod here, which just takes more time. That's okay. We'll wait for it to finish, and I'll go back to the main menu here. Okay, and now we're going to go to preheat. And because we're using PLA, we're just going to do PLA. And I could do preheat PLA, which would do both the hot end and the bed, but I just need to do the hot end, also known as the extruder. So I'm going to heat that hot end. You can see it sets it to 200 degrees Celsius and starts to heat up, and also the fan kicks on. So we'll wait for that to heat up. We'll do a little high speed. Okay, now that that's reached 200 degrees, and it's gone a couple degrees over, that's fine. And that took about 2 minutes to get from 0 to 200 degrees. So pretty quick. So now that that's heated up, we're going to come over here, and because it's heated up now, the nozzle is hot, and you can see there's a little bit. You can see there's a little bit of filament that's come out, and that's fine. I'm just going to grab my tool here and pull that out. That's just a little bit of gravity, and you can see a little bit is still coming out. That'll happen if there's any pressure. Again, that's fine. Don't worry too much about that. But now that it's hot, you're ready to remove the filament. So what we're going to do is this lever here pinches this pinch roller against this gear, and that's what prevents the filament from moving back and forth. And this gear here is exactly what turns and moves the filament out to extrude it or back to retract it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch this lever down with one hand and pull the filament out with another hand. And because I need 2 hands, I'm going to place the camera up here. Okay, so again, I'm going to pinch this lever down, which you can see releases the filament, and then I can just unthread this filament, and you can see it come through the tubes. Now here what's happening is it's important. With my other hand here, I'm actually going to roll the filament up so that it doesn't unspool and go all over the place, and I'll talk about why in just a second. A little bit awkward. keep coming, keep coming. And then the last little bit. So there is the hot tip that was in the nozzle, and you can see this little stringy string that came out with it. But this, you can see it comes to a point, and the reason it comes to a point is because the nozzle comes to a point. So that's what it was. So I'm going to talk for just a second about how to roll up the filament, roll up the spool. Okay, now I have the free end of the filament here. You can see it against my shirt, and it's out of the machine. I don't want to just let this go though, because it can unspool, and then when you roll it back up, it can get crossed over itself like this, and it will catch, and it won't feed into the machine properly, and it can lead to failed prints. So you want to hold a little bit of tension on this and spool it back up like this. And then they give you these little holes in here, and you can just thread it through one of them and then thread it through the next. And now it won't go anywhere. And if you look, it's just threaded through the edge like that. And I'm going to wind up cutting some of this off when I use it next. If you wanted to, you could cut this and leave it. What you definitely want to do though is you want to put this in a Ziploc bag with a little packet of desiccant, the little silica gel packs that come with new shoes, because this stuff doesn't do well if it gets wet, or it even absorbs moisture from the air, and it gets really brittle, and then you can't use it anymore. So seal that up, pack it away till you're ready to use it the next time. So now we're going to talk about reloading the spool. Okay, so you've got your new filament. You can pretend this is a new filament and not the one I just unloaded. And you're ready to load it into the machine. So simple task, just put it on the roller like that, make sure it can move freely, and then I'm going to unthread the filament from here. Now, this little end here, I'm going to take my my clippers, and I'm going to clip at about a 45 degree, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's got a little bit of a 45 degree, and I'll show you in a second why that is. And again, I want to avoid unspooling it if I can. So I'm going to change angles here. Okay, so for loading filament, I've got to heat up my hot end, so you can see I've got it up to 200 degrees Celsius again. I still have it heated from when I unloaded it, but in any case, you'll need to jump up. You'll need to go into prepare and preheat PLA and preheat PLA end. Okay, and then again, it's not going to do anything here because it's already at 200. All right, and then back to the extruder motor and extruder assembly. Okay, I've got my filament ready, and I'm not going to let it unspool, so I'm being careful about that. All right, I've got my filament here, and I cut the end at an angle, and we'll see if this works or not. I may have to cut it at a slightly different angle. So there's a little hole in this lever right here, pretty close to the Z-axis spindle, and you can see now the filament is coming in there, but I can't push it any farther until I pinch this like that. Okay, and now I can push it in, but there's another hole right in here, and this is one of the trickiest parts I have found of this Ender 3 3D printer, is getting this filament to load in there. So I'm going to go ahead and take my clippers again, and I'm going to cut this at an angle like this, so that I have so that the tip of it wants to go in there. I'm also going to just angle it, just bend it a little like that, and then let's try again. So I'll slide it in here, pinch the rollers, and jiggle it, and kind of just jiggle it up and down. Yep, it's having trouble again. So I'm going to bend it a little bit less. As I said, I found this to be one of the trickier parts of the Ender 3 is just loading the filament here. The key thing is that it's coming through the hole in this lever, and you also need to get it to come through the hole here so that it can go into the Bowden tube here. Nope. All right, so I'm going to cut back a little bit more of this. Try it one more time. And again, this is one of those, there it is. This is one of those Zen things. So now that I've got it, I can just feed it in. And as I feed it in, see if you can see this. You might be able to see it fill up, like come through the Bowden tube. Yeah, you can see that yellow filament coming right along. All right, and it's going to come all the way down until it gets down here to this hot end. And this is just a little bit of filament left over from last time. So I'm going to pluck that off, being careful not to touch the hot end. So I'm going to keep feeding this through until, yeah, there it starts to come out of the nozzle. All right, you can see that little bit coming out of the nozzle. And then I'm just going to pluck this off and let it sit for a minute. A little bit more will come out, and that's fine. It's just a little bit of like gravity fed melting. But after a minute or so, it'll stop because it's not feeding more filament through. And so now your filament is loaded and you're basically ready to print. If you move the clippers out of the way.